Minister, are your department's contracts, particularly those under the Indigenous Procurement Program, thoroughly reviewed for potential fraud and criminality? And what mechanisms are currently in place to detect and prevent such issues?
Well, thank you very much, MP Brock, and I will say that the work that we're doing to ensure that we have a list of Indigenous businesses that can benefit from procurement policy of the federal government is very important. In fact, it's part of the economic reconciliation agenda to make sure that the spend of the federal government actually benefits Indigenous-owned companies and companies that are Indigenous-led. As you know, and as I've answered at this committee before, my department works closely with other departments to make sure that they do have access to that list. And we also provide audits upon request by other departments, or certainly if we've heard complaints by
Thank you, Minister.
Specific partners.
I'm reclaiming my time. Thank you. Dalian Enterprises received $8 million to work on the ArriveCam app, a two-person company working out of their basement that performed no IT work, simply acting as a middleman connecting government with IT professionals. What percentage of the work subcontracted by Dalian was given to Indigenous businesses?
So I
Just
think,
the percentage, Minister.
as I've said here before, first of all, that particular company is under a post audit.
Minister,
but
the
I will
percentage,
also say
please.
that it's important that we continue to realize what the point of the
Minister,
Indigenous
the
registry
percentage,
is.
please.
And the point of the Indigenous registry
Okay,
is
you
to
clearly
make
don't
sure
want to
that
answer the question. I'm going to move on. In 2014, there was an internal audit of the program recommending the government increase the number of pre-award audits, post-award audits, and random audits. In those 10 years, how many audits have been completed?
one of the exciting things about the work that we're doing on
Just the number,
procurement
please,
strategy
Minister.
is actually transferring control of
Minister,
determining
the
who-
number,
Hey,
please.
Mr. Brock, I'm going to
determining
just
who
ask you
is
to hold
Indigenous
to allow the
to,
minister
in
to
fact, Indigenous
provide an
people.
answer.
Point of order, Chair.
Sure, point
It
of
was
order.
a very specific question. How many audits in the last 10 years have been completed? This minister is deliberately not answering the relevant question I put to her. So where the minister continues to deviate in her responses, I will continue to interrupt because Canadians who are watching this, Chair, want to have answers to these very important questions.
And I will afford you that opportunity to ask the questions, but we need to give the minister the time to respond, and we cannot have people speaking over to each other.
But she's
the
not
simple-
responding, Chair.
She's attempting to respond. Let's see what she comes out with as far as
How
response.
many
So,
audits?
Minister, let's go to you. The clock is running. There's 3 minutes, 44 seconds left.
How many audits?
So the member opposite may not like my response, but I am responding to the member opposite because I'm talking about indigeneity and how important it is that the Government of Canada
I
get
know
out
it's
of the
important,
business of
Minister.
determining
How
who is
many
Indigenous and
audits?
work with-
I will tell you
Mr. Brock,
because there.
okay, I'm going to have to suspend if we continue this. It cannot happen. We will suspend. The interpreters cannot do their job. We can't follow when both people are speaking. So I would say give the minister 5 seconds, 10 seconds, and then we'll move it back to you to get the response
I
you're looking
gave
for.
her more than 5 seconds and 10 seconds, Chair. She doesn't want to give me an answer
Okay.
as to how many audits have been conducted in the last 10 years.
Yeah,
That is the question.
Minister, the floor is to you for that question.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thanks for attempting to have some civility in this place. I will say that it's important to understand the purpose of the list if we're talking about audits. And the purpose of the list is not to determine, from our department's perspective, about the procurement process itself, but really to provide support to other departments around the indigeneity.
For Canadians is 4, and
Okay,
those
Mr.
4
Brock,
were
sorry, I'm
completed
gonna-
in the last 2 years.
I'm going to pause.
Minister, your government provided a list of contractors through Indigenous procurement, but did not list any subcontractors. Canadians simply don't know where their money is flowing. How can you be assured that the money isn't flowing to subcontractors working out of their basement here in Ottawa without a penny flowing to First Nation communities?
A little bit about the process of how people are certified to
Minister, with all due respect, that's
just
an
asked the
insult.
question.
That's an insult to members at this table. We don't want to know about process. I want to have a response to the relevant question, Minister. You haven't given me a response yet that has been relevant to any of the questions I put to you.
So actually, you did ask me a process question because you asked me how we determined an Indigenous company and how we follow and track what that Indigenous company does. That, to me, in the way my mind works as a former planner, is a process question. And so I would like to turn to officials.
So how much money has been flowing through subcontractors actually employed by Indigenous owners and money going to Indigenous communities? Just a number, please. How many?
So the process of the list that the Indigenous Services Canada Department maintains is that the Indigenous Services Canada Department determines indigeneity and provides that information to other departments of Canada who are looking to procure to meet that 5% target of procurement, all with the goal of ensuring that we can foster economic
But you're
reconciliation.
failing, Minister. You are failing. Indigenous communities have repeatedly told you the process is flawed. And you, as Minister of Indigenous Services, have an absolute responsibility that money is actually flowing to Indigenous contractors. You don't have a process. You're not conducting any audits.
I would disagree with the allegation that the department doesn't have a process, and I would also disagree with that with the allegation that all partners are disappointed. In fact, I work closely with many experts, Indigenous experts, in economic reconciliation, and we are actively working with partners on a pathway to transition the list to Indigenous partners in a way that makes sense to them and that supports their goal of economic prosperity for their communities.